This is Sky World News with Luquesa Burak.
Hello, you're watching World News. Our top stories this morning, and Syrians go to the polls today for a presidential election that the West and opposition groups have described as a farce. Bashar al-Assad is widely expected to win another 7-year term in office. The eastern Ukrainian city of Luhansk has come under sustained assault from pro-Russian separatists. Hundreds of armed activists have attacked a border command center, with at least 5 killed during fighting with Ukrainian guards. And the White House has defended the prisoner swap, which helped secure the release of an American soldier held by the Taliban. 5 of the Islamist group's fighters freed from Guantanamo Bay have been handed over in Qatar. Well, more now on the presidential election in Syria. And Marwan, an opposition journalist in the country's biggest city of Aleppo, told us that he doesn't believe anyone is taking it seriously.
Both those who are against Assad and those who are with Assad in Syria has taken this election as a joke, because everybody knows that there are no elections in Syria. The Assad family has taken power in Syria since 40 years, and right now suddenly he comes up with a democratic election. Of course, everybody took it as a joke. You want to show the world that he's changing Syria. I'm not sure he's succeed in that, because at the same time, while he's taking his elections in the center of Damascus, he is shelling the center of Aleppo by using TNT barrels. There will be a chance that the opposition will interrupt these elections, particularly in Aleppo, in the western areas of Aleppo, by shelling these areas. And also there will be interruption in other provinces in Syria. I'm sure about that, but I'm not sure what is going to happen. We have to wait and see. Well, he's going to win these elections because he and his secret forces has established these elections, so-called democratic elections. But what he's going to achieve nothing, because the fights will go on. We will keep the power in Syria. I'm not sure whether he will keep the power in all of Syria, because he has lost a lot of Syria. So he will keep the power in the areas which is under his control, and I'm talking about the center of Damascus, parts of the province of Homs, parts of the Syrian coasts, and also parts of the Kalamun mountains. And it will actually mean that the fights will continue all over Syria, and there will be no stop at all. Would you believe someone who and his family has taken power for 40 years? Would you believe him saying to you after taking power for 40 years, well, I'm going to do a democratic election? No, of course not. So it is all one big joke, a ridiculous elections. And we here in Aleppo, we believe that the only thing that we can make sure that the Assad regime will fall is by power, and that's it.
Well, I'm joined by the National Security Analyst Arash Aramesh from Stanford University in California. Arash, hopefully you heard what Marwan had to say there. What do you make of it?
Well, these elections, clearly, this election is a farce. Mr. Assad has ruled the country with an iron fist, especially in the past 3 years, since he's had to deal with a domestic uprising and now full-fledged civil war. His father as well. But let's be clear here, this election is meaningless. There are 2 other rivals, one from the former Communist Party and the other gentleman, a former member of the parliament, both of whom pose absolutely no serious threat to Bashar al-Assad's presidency. He's running for a third 7-year term. Well, this is the first time he's actually holding an election. The last 2 times, the last time actually, Mr. Assad was voted in by sort of a parliamentary referendum. This election is meaningless, as I said before, but Assad has managed to gain the upper hand in many battlefields. In Homs, for instance, we just saw what happened about a week or 2 weeks ago, where the opposition pretty much had to leave town, and Homs was the sort of symbolic place of opposition for opposition figures, and where a lot of it was like the opposition capital. Even in Aleppo today, where we see part of the town, part of the city, this is the largest city in Syria, that is still under, some parts of it are under rebel control. The government uses barrel bombs and heavy artillery to shell it on a daily basis. However, on the other hand, you will see that there are radical elements within Syria who are fighting against the Assad regime, elements such as the ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra. ISIS is so radical that even Al-Qaeda has decided not to side with them and has asked them not to kill Al-Qaeda leaders. So you see a pretty grim picture of what's happening in Syria today, what's going to happen in the future. Second quick point, Luquesa, I'm going to mention this really briefly. Even if you're a Syrian, and even if you were to vote in the elections tomorrow and you wanted to vote, you can't vote in big chunks of the country. In the northeast, the province of Hasaki is pretty much out of government control. Large segments on the Iraqi border out of government control. Large parts in the north and parts in the south are completely out of the government control. So how are people going to go actually to polling places and vote? These are significant, serious logistical issues.
Arash, why bother then? Why didn't he just hold off until he says that he's brought calm back to the country? Why do you think he's going ahead with this?
Well, he had promised these elections before things got really out of control, first of all. Second, to people who want to use this as a propaganda sort of advertising tool to say, look, he held an election, he won it by 91% or 85% or 73% or whatever percentage they're going to come up with, they're going to say this is going to grant him a degree of legitimacy. On top of this, if you follow some news networks that are very friendly to the Syrian regime, Press TV, RT, which is Russian television, they are advertising and broadcasting this as if this is somewhat of a fair and free election, which is not the case. So for the most part, this is propaganda. Most importantly, this is speaking to his own base. He is talking to his own domestic audience that have supported him. The whatever sects and whatever groups that have supported Assad are now going to be able to say, look, he held an election, he won because I voted and my family around me voted and everybody in my village voted. What they don't know is that large segments of the population are against him, or they didn't get a chance to vote. Again, I want you to be able to juxtapose the two issues, which is Assad is bad, but at the same time, there are some elements fighting in Syria that make things much, much, much worse. And I'm talking about the radical Islamists, of course.
Well, outside of Syria, many people just see this as laughable, Arash. But do you think that being voted back in, if you can call it that, will just give him a mandate to increase his crackdown on those fighting him?
Oh, with or without this election, Assad is going to continue to fight this war. He knows if he knows what's going to happen to him if he loses, and he's not going to go down the Gaddafi, the Libyan Gaddafi route. So and right now he's got the upper hand. Iran is helping him, the Russians are helping him, Hezbollah has got forces on the ground, and Assad has managed to actually break city after city. Homs was not just a strategic town, but most importantly was a symbolic city. Assad and Assad's troop and Assad's forces are on the move and they have the upper hand. So is he going to continue to do this? Of course he is. Is the opposition in a pretty tight, grim position? They are. Unfortunately, within the opposition, within those who are fighting against Assad, groups that have the upper hand are the radical Islamists. And that is a major threat not only to U.S. national security, but also to other Western countries, some of whose fighters actually come from these countries. And they go back, and we're facing this challenge right now. But is Assad going to continue to crack down and fight the civil war? You betcha.
Okay. Arash, as ever, a pleasure. Thank you very much.